Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. This is Katie, who's going to be hosting the panel with me.
The first questions are kind of about the book. So first of all, most obviously, why did you want to write a book, and what kind of inspired you to actually take that step and start it?
It's about 4 years ago when I started doing my content and stuff. I started making all my videos. I was like, I have so much to say.
Way more than you can say in a TikTok.
Yeah, you can only fit so much into 60-second videos. And I saw how much it was making an impact and people just related. And I was like, I love writing. I've always wanted to write a book. It's always been on my bucket list since I was 6 years old. And so I was like, I could write this. So I started writing little essays and things, and it slowly formulated into a book. Yeah, and then I started formatting it, and it took so long.
How long did it actually take to do the whole process?
Well, I started in 2021. I started planning. 2022, I wrote the first draft. 2023, more drafts, so many drafts of books. And then 2024, I think I started editing and publishing, and the publishing process is really long.
Yeah.
And then this year, it was just
finally happened.
Planning everything, making it come to life, and getting the physical book. It's just really cool.
Yeah. So what kind of topics does the book cover, and who is the kind of target audience? Who can it help?
It mainly just covers all of my health conditions and the stuff that I've been through. So the first quarter of the book is about my childhood and bullying and a lot of undiagnosed neurodivergent struggles, because I struggled a lot in school, as I know a lot of people do. So it's kind of how I struggle with that and bullying and everything leading up to developing my conditions. My Tourette's diagnosis, that whole journey, becoming a wheelchair user, going through chronic illness and learning to adapt. And then it kind of comes to a nice end towards the end of the book of my recent things, learning how to be myself, I guess, learning how to unmask, getting my autism diagnosis. So it covers loads of things that will hopefully resonate with people.
Yeah, I definitely think it 100% will. You didn't go the traditional route of publishing, and you self-published. What was that like, having all of that responsibility and managing it all yourself? That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, I really underestimated how much work publishing a book is, especially when you're working with a really small team.
Yeah.
I did most of the things myself. I had to learn the whole process. It took much longer than expected, but it's really fun. I love learning new things.
Yeah.
So I was I learned how to edit, I learned how to write, I guess.
Format it, all of that.
How to format the pages, how to do the cover, and how to run an event, which this is my first in-person event meeting people, so it's been a really fun process. I would definitely do it again.
Definitely. The name of the book is Enemy for a Brain. How did you come up with that, and what does that kind of mean to you?
Well, I came up with this quite a few years ago, long before the book was even a thing.
Oh, wow.
I think I actually wrote a poem or something. It was either a song or a poem, and I had that in there. And I was that's a really cool concept, because I think at the start of my journey, my enemy, my brain was my enemy.
Yeah.
I had so many things that I hated about my brain, and I was so frustrated that it had chosen to do this. It had chosen to give me a really difficult set of symptoms. But over the years, I've kind of learnt to work with it, and I've discovered how to live without viewing my conditions and my brain as an enemy, and more just as a part of me. So it explains a lot more about that in the last few chapters of the book. But yeah, it's kind of, I thought people would relate, because a lot of us feel frustration towards, towards our brains and bodies.
To be angry at your body and stuff, and it's learning to live alongside it.
There's so much grief that comes with becoming disabled, or even being neurodivergent, especially if you're late diagnosed. You have to go through grieving all the things that might have been easier if you had help or you knew more about something.
Yeah, and also not knowing, I guess, as well, that you were.
The kind of trauma of not understanding why everything was difficult, and then finally figuring out that there was an answer for it, which is positive and negative.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I talk a lot about that.
Is there anything you've spoken about in the book that's been more difficult to speak about, or that you've really wanted there to be more attention kind of coming to?
Yeah, there's a few. I've tried to keep it as accessible as possible, so I've kept out all the really, really graphic details and things, but I've talked a lot about kind of the acceptance period within yourself, and feeling just really low and grieving your old life. Yeah. Because that's something I still struggle with, is wanting to just, where could I have been if this didn't happen? Where could I have been if I didn't need a wheelchair, or, all the other things, feeling frustrated that things are more difficult. But I've talked a lot about during my FND journey, that was kind of one of the hardest periods of my life. Like 2021 was really difficult, especially during school. So I talk a lot about how I coped with like being alone and losing friends, and you just feel really isolated when you're going through stuff like that. So I've opened up a lot about like experiences with seizures and kind of the things that people don't talk about because it can be embarrassing, but like it shouldn't be embarrassing to talk about because we don't choose to go through it.
It's not a choice, no one would choose this, The next kind of questions are a bit more about chronic illness and physical disability.
Yes.
So this book covers so much, including mental health, neurodivergency, and disability. What do you wish you could explain to a younger version of yourself, or what do you wish you could tell a younger version of yourself that's going through these things?
Well, I think if I told my younger self what my life looks like now, I wouldn't believe it, because I think when you're first going through things, especially as a younger teen, it's really hard to think of how do I make friends, how do I live normally, how do I do all the things. So I just say that you're not alone, and you don't have to do things the way that everybody else does. You don't have to do things the way that you were told that society thinks that's how you should do it, because you can be really successful. Success looks different. Success looks different for everybody. Success doesn't mean going to university, getting a qualification. It could mean just existing, and it could mean adapting for yourself so you can actually enjoy life, using a wheelchair, using a OTAs.
For that.
And there's so many creative things that are more accessible than other things. So this is my job, which wasn't what I was intending on, but being open-minded to where you're going to end up, because you never know what good could come out of it.
You never know how good it can get.
It's really easy to focus on how difficult it is in the moment and how different everything is, and being autistic, change is really hard, but change can bring good things as well. So it's important to just try and look for the good bits as well as appreciating the struggle of the bad things.
How do you think you do try and focus on the good things? Is there anything you do that can kind of bring you out of it a bit and try and get you to focus on it? Because obviously when you're in it can be really difficult to
when you're
that.
In the middle of it, especially developing new symptoms, back in high school when my FND was at its worst, it's so hard to focus on other things because your days are so overwhelmed with symptoms and stuff. I've spoken a lot about how many things you have to deal with in a day that just takes up all your brain space, but just enjoying the little things in an adapted way can really help. I used to love gymnastics, love movement and stuff, and I can't really do that anymore. But with stuff like my attachment and my wheelchair, I can still go out in nature. So it doesn't feel the same, but you still get to enjoy stuff, and it reminds you that there's so much to enjoy and live for. You don't have to be the old version of yourself to live and enjoy things.
No, definitely. And how do you think you learn to live with conditions that are constantly changing? These conditions, we've got a lot of the same conditions, and a lot of them are dynamic, so they can change day to day. How do you kind of learn to deal with that, and just when it's changing so often and symptoms change in frequency and things like that?
Yeah, this is one that's really difficult, especially when trying to explain to other people, because people don't often know what a dynamic disability is, or how different your days can look. As an autistic person, change isn't fun. And so when it's constantly changing, I think just being nice to yourself, just accepting that when you need more help, that is okay, and you do need more accommodations. I still find it difficult to accept that on some days I can walk, and on other days that could send me into a big flare-up, but it's okay to use more accommodations. It doesn't make you lazy, it doesn't make you weak, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough, it just means that you need different things on that day.
And even things you having good days doesn't take away from the bad days that are still very much there. Don't punish yourself for having a good day.
Yeah, I think people often find it hard to allow yourself to be good on a good day.
And enjoy it.
Yeah, to enjoy, you are still disabled or neurodivergent. You still are the same person no matter what your symptoms are like. So just enjoy what you can at the time. I think it's difficult, especially as an ambulatory wheelchair user, standing up out of your chair, people are oh, you don't need it anymore.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, it's a miracle, we're cured. But just trusting in yourself that you know your body best, and it doesn't matter whether people, agree with that. It doesn't matter what they think, because there is a whole community that does understand. And that's why I love events like this, because you don't have to explain to anybody.
did you find it helpful kind of getting into that community a bit more and like having those people that understood?
That's one of the main reasons that like I wanted to write the book and do an event and things, because it's one of the things that I would have wanted to read.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because the reason I got into content was because I was seeing other people and like people were commenting going, oh, this is really interesting, I have this.
Yeah.
And it's like connecting with people that you can relate to. It reassures you that like you literally are not alone.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's so much of the time when you're struggling and you are like home
especially
alone.
in like school and stuff, like if there aren't people around you who
you're usually
have
the odd
similar
one out.
things, you're normally, so
but
being online is
in this community you're not the odd one out. Like
Never.
it's the only place where you can tick freely and no one cares. Like they just
it's just
accept
normal.
it. Yeah, and you can show up in a wheelchair and you don't have to worry about asking for a ramp or asking if it's step free. It just is because
people
they
just
understand.
Accept. No,
so
definitely.
this community is just it's helped me as well. So I just want to give back in any way I can, because it's been so good.
Do you think it's made you more confident talking about it all online? Like, do you think it's made you more confident in your own conditions and things like that?
I think it took me a long time to adjust, especially with FND, because it's such like a complex condition and it's really debilitating. It's hard to accept something that makes you disabled, because obviously you don't want it and it makes your life hard. So it's like I don't want to accept it.
Especially in that stage when it's like every single thing,
in
denial, 100%.
But like especially with Tourette's, I think because I showed it to so many people and they were asking questions, it became something that I could teach to people rather than something that I wanted to hide. And I think kind of promoting it online, like pushing it out and like sharing it on a video, being on camera. Like I used to be so shy. Like I would not put my hand up in school. Like I was like the quiet kid at the back. Tourette's forced me out of that, because like I went from being the quiet, shy kid to being like the class clown, but involuntarily. And so it kind of gave me a way to take control of the narrative rather than, because people were going to notice either way. So
I like that, like taking control of the narrative. Like people can say whatever they want, but like the more confident you are in your conditions and the more like you know your experience better than anyone, like it definitely helps a lot, I think.
And like the amount of messages I get from people saying like, oh, it's encouraged me to like unmask my tics, or when I go to like Tourette's Action events and everyone's ticking, it's like, oh my god, I can tick, like it's okay. And so it just it feels so good. So I just want to give a little bit of that back.
Obviously you developed your chronic illnesses and like physical disabilities at such a pivotal age. Like as a teenager everything's changing and the world is changing. How did you kind of find your own identity while living with these things that consume so much of your life? Like obviously you said you do gymnastics, me too, and I'm sure for a lot of us like hobbies can become very difficult, and the things that previously you viewed as making you can be kind of almost taken away for a little while, or for longer. But how do you kind of learn who you are and find your identity when that is the case?
I think there's two parts to it, because number one, it's finding your identity as a disabled person, but separate to your conditions. Because I think the second part is that finding yourself in general, like you're so busy, and in high school I just did not have any time for hobbies. It made it difficult. Like I couldn't do gymnastics, I couldn't go to yoga.
Didn't have the capacity to actually
I dropped
do
out
it,
of all my clubs. I wasn't well enough to go do choir or anything like that. And so it feels like you lose parts of yourself. And it's like, who am I if I can't do whatever it is before?
Because those are things that previously defined
if I can't do those things anymore, what does that leave left behind? And then there's the other kind of identity of, who am I? Like, am I my conditions? Am I not? Like, how do you navigate that? And I think it's really helpful just to replace things with other things that bring you joy. I've been trying to replace like gymnastics, and like I'm going through a lot of physical grief because I got ill again last year, and since then like my health has been very different. So like physically I really can't do what I used to be able to do. And so that's like a whole transition period. But finding things like falling back on art and music and stuff I can do no matter what physically is happening, like I can get joy from that. And yes, I can't do the other things, but just focusing on like who I am there and spending time with friends helps so much. Like finding people who understand, where I don't have to like push myself out of my limits to enjoy stuff.
You don't have to make yourself uncomfortable or cause a flare just so that you can spend time with people.
That just like helps. Like I think in my journey I completely lost like my identity. I didn't know who I was.
Me too.
I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know like what version of myself to present, especially But like we found ways to do it, and it allowed me to go outside and still live, even when I had conditions. So I wasn't stuck
You get
in
that
bed.
joy kind of again.
Yeah, I
like,
can
you get to
still. I'm like,
experience
okay, I can live. And I think it was like the day after my first paralysis episode, I was like, I'm going into school, and my mum was like,
No, you're not.
Yeah, she's like, are you sure about that? We ordered a next day delivery on Amazon
Yeah.
wheelchair. The next day I was like, right, let's go.
Yeah.
And I got back into school and I was like, I'm doing it. Yeah, and then getting custom mobility aids has been really life-changing, because the more I'm needing to use them, the more like having custom things, having my electric attachment has completely changed the game, because I can go zooming through forests. That's like giving me back the feeling of like hiking and freedom, and like it's my mode of transport. So like I can just get anywhere with it. And it just makes me feel so much more independent, because that's something that I lost pretty early on in my journey. Like,
is that independence to be able to do things yourself and
like,
not feel like
as
reliant?
a teenager, age 14, 15, 16, like starting going out to parties, and people are doing this and that, and then a bit older people start getting driver's license, and everyone's like kind of thinking about uni and getting independence, whereas I was like losing it, and it felt like I couldn't get out. Like
it's going the opposite way to everyone
I felt
else around
almost
you,
like a child again, because I had to be taken everywhere. Like it wasn't safe. I needed the wheelchair. Someone had to lift it, and it took so much effort to get out of the house. And even then, like I was symptomatic a lot. I've recently gained so much independence just from adapting, because it like from the things that I can't do, some adaptations can give me parts of that back in a different way.
Even if it's not absolutely everything, even getting like a bit of a taste of it is definitely amazing.
Like just being able to like go around a shop and not collapse is really nice.
But even I feel like recently started using mobility aids, and I feel like being able to go outside and not just feel, I don't know if this makes sense, but kind of just like a big ball of symptoms. Like I was so concentrated on my symptoms because I felt so unwell that I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't actually actively enjoy things. So I feel like that must be such a big part, and especially having an attachment and like zooming through. Like I've seen you going off road.
I can get in some pretty. You'd be surprised at the places you can get with an attachment. Maybe not safely, but it's fun. It's given me so much freedom. And I mean, some of the first things I used in my journey were like crutches, walking sticks, braces, everything like that. Like in high school, you pretty much didn't see me without some sort of thing or like a sling somewhere. But if it reduces symptoms, then it really does help. I think there's just so much guilt. It's a really hard self-acceptance period, because especially ambulatory wheelchair users, technically you can walk. Like I can stand up, I can walk. And so it's like, well, why should I use a wheelchair then? But
like
if I use a wheelchair,
it,
I don't crash in the evening. I'm not in immense pain. And so it's like weighing it up and being like, it would help me. Like a healthy person would not consider using a wheelchair because they wouldn't need it. They would just do it. And
it would be inconvenient for them.
Because it doesn't solve everything. Like you have accessibility issues. You need ramps. Getting on a train.
Still aspects of relying on other people, but overall, like independence.
It doesn't make navigating the world any easier. But if it will help you, it changed my life, and I know it changes a lot of other people's.
I can already say it's changed my life. But it's only been a couple months. So the next questions are kind of about neurodiversity, but still a little bit about chronic illness. How does your being neurodivergent impact your experience of chronic illness and physical disability, like especially with that like acceptance and the change like you mentioned?
I think it's a lot harder. I mean, for me, I'm imagining it's the same for a lot of people. Like being autistic and having change is so jarring. I mean, change is difficult to adapt to for anybody, but when you find it difficult, like even if a little routine changes, if you have a new set of symptoms, your routine changes everywhere because you can't do it normally anymore. You have to adapt. And if you don't already have the adaptations in place, adjusting to that can be really difficult. And then
sorry, I didn't mean to hit that.
And then there's like another thing with like sensory issues. Like I know when I'm struggling, like especially with things like paralysis, or if my legs aren't great, dragging myself up the stairs, things like that, being really not being able to regulate temperature, all of that can be really difficult from like a sensory perspective. So I think something that like I'm working on at the minute is trying to regulate me, like sensory-wise, nervous system, and really taking extra care of that, especially if you've got other symptoms going on.
So that then you can also
you need to mentally try and be in the best place you can to accommodate the symptoms and try and like, it's so much problem solving. Like being chronically ill is just daily problem solving at every single part of it, and especially as a wheelchair user.
Everything always like opposes each other. Like this will make this better, but this will make this worse.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm using the wheelchair, now my arms hurt. Great. Yeah, there's not a perfect solution to everything, but yeah, especially like having my autism diagnosis now, I know so much more about myself, and now that I know that, I can manage everything else so much better because I've not got all of that stress. Like I have different people around me, everyone knows, like, because I can accept myself in that way, there's not the pressure to mask, which means I'm not on top of, I'm not as stressed, which does improve symptoms. Because stress never makes anything any better.
How did you find your autism diagnosis? Do you think it's helped you? Like, how have you started to kind of start that process of unmasking and kind of getting back to who you actually are, not the masked version of Zara?
Getting my autism diagnosis was a long process. There's a whole chapter dedicated, I think there's 2. there's a few chapters dedicated to like the whole process and just accepting it. It was so overwhelming at first. I thought I was prepared, and then I logged off the call and I was like, wow, me and my mum just burst into tears, and it was like, 18 years of not understanding why anything like didn't work. Like I didn't understand like why I couldn't do friendships, why I didn't understand this. I struggled in school. I couldn't do loud noises and change and all these things that I thought that I was just bad at. That was
you
just
thought it was like a personal failure.
Yeah,
like
I thought that
fault.
I just can't do it. Other people can, I can't. Like suddenly it made sense, and I felt so sad for the younger me that went through high school just like putting up with it. Like I went through high school like having to leave, having panic attacks every lesson. I was just kind of put off as like an anxious, shy kid, when like realistically, if I'd had those accommodations, if I'd known how my brain worked and I could have like accommodated like I do now and I was in a good scenario, maybe I could have enjoyed school, maybe it could have gone well. And so that's like one of the reasons I want to advocate, because now that I know all of this, I look back and I'm like, Is
there anything specifically that you think would have helped you more in school? Say, for example, you had known that you were autistic when you were in school. Is there anything you think that would have helped you, or things that you could have asked for potentially that could have helped?
Like one big thing that I do, obviously I'm not in school now, but something I did in college when I was learning more about myself was asking to sit at the back of the classroom so no one could see me, wearing like headphones. If I'd had ear defenders, I probably could have handled so many more classrooms, like having extra time for things. And one of the main things was social groups, and I think there's not really much you can do about being thrown into a classroom with 30 people that you might not get on with. It's hard to find neurodivergent friends when you're just thrown into a class, and there might only be maybe 2-3 people in the class that you would get on with, and you might not end up sitting next to them. It's difficult, but I think leaving school for me was one of the best things. Like when I finished and I was like, I'm out, I could finally figure out who I was and figure out how my brain worked without having to mask or worry about what other people were thinking. I could just do it completely on my own.
That was scary.
That was one of the main things. But I just wish I could have had like ear defenders and being allowed to go out and just the support, because even though I had a pass to leave for my anxiety and my tics and panic attacks and things, but once I left the classroom, there wasn't really any support. It was just it was quieter and there weren't people there, but I still didn't have the understanding. I was just so frustrated with myself. I was like, why can't I just do it? But now I look back and I'm like, oh, the clock was too loud, that was too loud, this person was doing that, the smell, this, that. The sensory overload of it, I think it could be more managed, and it would still be difficult. The social would still be difficult, but adaptations like that and just more understanding, especially of like autistic girls, I think we go undiagnosed so commonly.
The signs are so different, and it's like they're constantly brushed off. Yeah,
they're constantly missed, especially if you do well in school. And my grades were good, so they're like, oh yeah, she's fine, she's good.
She's just shy,
and then I came out the other side of high school and we just about made it out. But there's so many things that could be done. I just hope that like raising awareness can help educate some people, and make some change.
Might help other young people who are in school who are having these things. Is there anything physical disability wise you think would have helped you in school?
A lift.
A lift, yeah. No, that's so true.
Yeah, that my high school wasn't very accessible. There was stairs everywhere, so I couldn't get to my classrooms.
I was regularly going down in the evac chair, like down the stairs.
Yeah, I don't think we had one. Stuff like that, and also more pacing. In college, it was a lot better because you're older, you can advocate a bit more, and I knew a lot more about myself. But even still, like the sheer pressure of exams and so many classes a day, I just couldn't manage it. And I just feel like if we could have more things like reduced timetables and friendlier system for people, working from home when you can. Yeah. Like the COVID setup, I think improved a lot for people because even though, we're not in lockdown doing school online, my school kept that system, and so when I wasn't well enough to go in physically, I could still log on and do the work if I was mentally up to it, and stuff like that. If it was just more well known that that's an option, it could help so many people not flare.
And also understanding from schools that you might not be well enough to be in, but that doesn't mean you're not necessarily well enough to do any work. I think that's definitely a massive thing.
Yeah, I think that was one of the issues, especially in COVID, because I did my GCSEs during COVID.
Yeah, me too.
And so it was you had to log on online, but if I was I'm not well enough, it's well, you're in bed, just...
It's tough luck, yeah.
There's definitely two kind of sides to it. It's physical and the mental, social, cognitive, brain fog.
Definitely.
Brain fog's a killer.
Is But I think especially with things like exams, it's pretty well known that the exam system doesn't work, the current exam system doesn't work for people that are neurodivergent or physically disabled.
It would be so great if there were more, I did coursework-based things in college, and that was a major difference because with Tourette's and seizures, trying to sit an exam for 2 hours doesn't exactly work.
Especially even things in GCSEs and A-levels, I had it really badly in my A-levels where you could be predicted the highest grades in the world, but if you go in on a bad symptom day and these exams are lined up one day after another,
everything's on that.
It's like a recipe for a horrific crash, and also to give you the worst outcome possible.
I think it is improving.
Yeah, it's definitely improving.
Yeah. We can open up to Q&A if anyone has any questions, or if you want to tell someone else can shout it out. Yes. Yeah,
Sorry,
go for it.
I was going to